This came about in 2014 whilst I was 26 and my ex-fiancée become 25. Woman. Let's call her Bob. We met in university and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement, with a wedding date booked by using the fourth 12 months. Neither of our mother and father are properly off financially, and he or she was attending grad faculty, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $22,000. That was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Main up to that nightmare of a nighttime, we had our traditional mid-20s relationship problems, bouts of terrible verbal exchange and moderate ingesting on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial other than that. We had a first-rate dating and spent a ton of time together identifying published university lifestyles and planning for our destiny. As I stated above, the marriage and reception venue cash might take a look at 4 days earlier than for the wedding, and the settlement said this turned into non-refundable. Over 120 guests have been showed, more than 1 dozen from out of nation, tuxes and bridesmaid attire were outfitted and paid for, and the whole thing changed into falling into location. Now permits get to the inevitable typhoon of occasions that you're all interested in. Before I keep rambling, the nighttime inquiry became a Friday night in our new condominium that we might moved into a few weeks previous. We decided to have approximately a dozen pals over to pre-game and head out to the bars in town. Blanketed on this organization of buddies become my friend whom I've recognized due to the fact that kindergarten. We will call him Ricky. Barb, and that I had spent quite a few time with Ricky over the last 3 years. He changed into surely one of her favorites, one among my friends, which is commonly high quality when you're enormous different receives together with human beings on your social circle. The night commenced at a local hookah lounge that turned into bring your very own bottle. By the time we left there, a 1x5 of Jameson and 30 racks of Coors Mild have been gone, and everybody was buzzed. The next 3 hours have been spent between to a few bars, which resulted inside the complete organization devolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, the majority went home, apart from myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came returned to our condominium for a nightcap. As soon as again at our area, the couple best lasted some other 20 minutes earlier than calling it and making their way domestic. So I was left with Bob, Ricky, and my intestine feeling something wasn't right. Earlier inside the nighttime on the hookah bar, I noticed Bob checking her telephone greater than ordinary, and concurrently Ricky checking his telephone after she locked the screen. I nearly put, and together, however, why would I worry about them planning whatever shady 2 days earlier than I was alleged to marry this lady? Return to my residence. I was fairly sober and observed all of the booze become gone. I was contemplating choosing up more than 1 6-packs from a local spot that remains open till 3:00 a.m. Barb and Ricky were in reality at the liquor and tanked. However, there was no motive to suspect whatever sketchy might occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my automobile and getting ready to go out my rental complex, I were given a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't proper, and it absolutely freaked me out. So I known as my exceptional bud, and he agreed to be picked up and be a part of me on the beer run and accompany me back to the apartment. After grabbing a few Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked as much as the sliding glass door that led to my living room, which had a sectional to the immediately right. We opened the door and took 2 steps inside the condominium. My ex-fiancée was completely topless and established on Mr. Ricky, tonsil deep down every other's throats. The first rate of part of the situation was neither of them regarded to note that my friend and I were 10 feet away, looking their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7 to 10 seconds of attempting to realize the present-day scenario, I misplaced it. I dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky, absolutely topless, and landed 2 difficult right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek at the same time as he became nonetheless lying on his return with the most terrified look on his face. To place things in perspective, I'm 6 feet, 220 inches LB, and have played hockey my entire lifestyles. He's 5'6" and 140 pounds and a runner. Without delay, following the attack with my fist, Ricky commenced snoring and changed into a sleep for as a minimum 5 minutes at the same time as I was losing my thoughts over the situation. Without questioning, I known as her parents about 10 instances till they woke up. I demanded they arrive to pick up their dishonest daughter straight away. Their house turned into best 5 minutes down the street. In order that they walked in rapidly thereafter, while I used to be laying in a barb about her unforgivable, disgusting decision. Her dad and mom frantically walked in, screaming at Bob. Ricky requested out on the couch, and my friend mediating the scenario. The primary factor, I told everybody, turned into the wedding become off. I demanded the hoop again and said I might, as an alternative, lose $20 and spend the relaxation of my existence with it. Cheating. Her dad and mom spent the following 20 minutes trying to talk me out of it, and now and again defending Barb's movements. They have been saying such things as, "Why cannot you forgive her?" Or, "Is not it too past due to cancel the wedding?" In the meantime, Ricky awakened, and the proper side of his face had swollen to the size of a grapefruit, and his left eye become completely shut. Kicking him out of the condo changed into tough, due to the fact he become too inebriated to drive. I referred to as his brother, who was 20 minutes away and spent that time laying into Barb, Ricky, and her mother and father. Fairly, I used to be able to live stage-headed enough to explicit my mind in such an extreme state of rage. The few instances I've been this upset inside the past, my brain felt love it was scrambled, and that I had a difficult time condensing and forming my thoughts into logical statements. Now, not this time. By the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Bob's mother and father shuttled her domestic, I had systematically picked aside any objection, opinion, or plea for reconsideration expressed by absolutely everyone within the room. It felt clearly outstanding. I am no longer going to foe. The following months have been easy, and everything labored out in my shoes. 2 months later, the farm business enterprise I labored at decided to lay off my whole department. I had racked up lots in credit card debt to pay for the marriage. Unemployment haunted me for 5 months, and I was identified with major melancholy. Lifestyles was up for a few years, and I wouldn't wish that on all and sundry. Now that I'm 30, things have settled down, and I couldn't be happier. Just a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. I definitely recognize it. It enables a lot. Now transferring directly to our second tale. My wife and the coach. My spouse and that I are 33, married for about 11 years. We live in a once rural vicinity. This is speedy becoming a suburb to a medium-sized metro place. Our excessive school graduating magnificence had a touch over 200 kids, now drawing close 500 graduates. I grew up on a farm. While I was 6, my mom simply in no way got here domestic at some point, so my dad raised me. I took on my farm responsibilities. In different words, I worked tough. Subsequently, my dad stopped farming. He leased his fields to other farmers, took a factory process, and invested his rent proceeds into buying up more land through the high-quality recession. He obtained many homes. On any such houses, there's been a house he gave to me to restore up and start a circle of relatives. It's in a consider with his different assets, but we pay all the payments. My spouse grew up lower center elegance in a brilliant circle of relatives that continually handled me properly. They moved to the vicinity even as we had been in junior high. We dated during high college and have been married once I had a steady job. Before then, I did the entirety to earn $1. Needed to haul junk out of a barn? Parents could name me. Wanted your own home painted? I can do it. In case you get what I imply. We've got an 8-year-old son. She is a stay-at-home mom now. I'm a course driving force for a large snack enterprise. I have greater than doubled the size via going into every mom-and-pop store, grocery, and gasoline station and selling as much product as I'm able to. I have a big place because the surrounding region remains rural. The plan was to have the spouse run the second one truck. There are projected excellent middle groceries or product stores to be built in the subsequent year in my vicinity. If I personal the course, it'll be mine. We were married due to the fact that multiple years out of excessive school. Our marriage hit some rocky spots, I suppose due to the fact I installed long hours. I attempted to be there, however, admittedly, am no longer. We've had lots of fun and love our boy with every fiber of ourselves. He is the everyday boy. Now into sports, he played basketball within the iciness, baseball this beyond spring, and is now into flag soccer. So, we hit a low spot relationship sensible within the spring. My wife and I talked about it, and every maid guarantees to do higher. Overdue April via mid-June, our sex existence went off the charts. We couldn't get enough of every different. To be sincere, I can also have been getting an excessive amount of because I used to be canine worn out but still ran my direction. My son was playing ball. I by no means neglected a game, however I did now not hit all his practices. With maximum young people sports, the dads take an active position in training or supporting out. I just could not give that dedication. My wife stepped up and helped out when wished. The baseball educate, Ted, is the ex of a very good pal from high college, Mary. She changed into the best child in college. She went to university. It's where they met. They married and soon had a son. Their marriage hit the skids. Mary returned home 3 years ago to have help watching the boy, along with her dad and mom. Ted moved here 2 years ago to be near their son, and that I think to win Mary back. The mid-to-cease of June, we sink again into our rut. We speak once more in July, promise to recommit, take a holiday. Nonetheless, the connection is bumpy. Mid-August comes around, the bedroom heats up again. September hits, and we're in a useless bedroom. My son begins gambling flag football. He loves it. I drop by means of practice and see my wife and Ted with a clipboard jogging the children through drills. There are more than one dad supporting too. I had no idea she changed into helping, so I mention it when we get domestic. My son is more excited and shouts out. She's now not helping, she's an instruct. It seems while signing the son up, she volunteered to be an assistant teach. This seems to devour a ton of time. The spouse is constantly texting, a few calls. However, normally when I am there, it's texting. They visit Ted's place every day after college, and he works his son and mine out. He's teaching them how to be higher, and it truly shows. They're the two first-class players at the crew. Their first recreation comes. I paintings within the morning and make it to the field for the sport. The spouse and Ted are side by means of aspect giving guidelines. Someone sets a chair down subsequent to me. It's Mary, and we watch the sport. Approximately halftime, she asks if the spouse and that I are doing okay. I inform her sure. I appearance over at her, and she is staring at me. She said her son got here home after being at Ted's. It had been raining, so there has been no exercise. They spent the afternoon playing video games. Her son went to the kitchen to get grater juice and saw Ted and the wife kissing. He ran again to the game and instructed Mary that night at home what he noticed. I get up at 4 a.m. every day to force 45 minutes to the warehouse to get my truck. So Monday morning, I got up at 3:30 a.m. to check her telephone. After a few tries, I found out what it became as she makes use of like 4 or 5 special ones for the whole lot. There I saw textual content after text, some nudes, so I took screenshots of a few. Generally, I have somebody that I spend in town. I from time to time could come home for lunch if I took one, especially whilst there has been a whole lot of intercourse happening. I got domestic and she turned into no longer there. I called her. However, she did now not select up. I drove with the aid of Ted's vicinity, and her vehicle changed into there. I completed my direction. She told me she was at the shop. She turned into sorry she neglected me. I informed her I used to be simply looking to marvel her. Not a large deal. The subsequent week at the identical day, I again allow her understand I used to be coming domestic for lunch. I used to be parked down the way from Ted's. How she did not see my massive antique truck is beyond me. She came strolling out of Ted's, got in her automobile, and raced domestic. I followed slowly, and once I arrived, she changed into making me a sandwich. We had a pleasing verbal exchange. Saturday after the game, I took my son domestic, had him exchange, and took him to my dad's. They had been going to fish in the pond, and if he desired, he could swim, of course. The spouse was not there, so I drove to Ted's. Her automobile changed into there. I referred to as her. She was form of annoyed. Then I requested what she changed into doing at Ted's. It became simply silence. I advised her to position her garments on and come home. While she ultimately did come home, I was sitting on the desk. She again swore at me for accusing her of something. I requested that she take a seat down. She refuses, getting extra agitated via the minute. I advised her a little greater forcefully to shut up and take a seat down and let me say my piece. I had a folder which she asked what turned into in it. I informed her to sit down, so I may want to display her. I started out pulling out screenshots of her texts. She went ballistic that I'd snoop in her smartphone. I then pulled out the greater incriminating texts. She attempted to provide an explanation for it away. Then I pulled the nudes out. She close up. I informed her we had been performed. I might give her until the following Sunday to be out. I was going to enroll her on Monday, take her clothes and personal stuff. We were able to figure the whole lot out later. She simply sobbed. She stated how sorry she changed into. I simply asked a question that I noticed on a Reddit advice sub. What did you believe you studied might manifest whilst I found out? She had no answer. I have stayed at my dad's since the weekend. I delivered my son returned on Sunday, so he ought to catch his bus to school on Monday. I had to find to him dad and mom might now not be residing together anymore. However, he might nevertheless live in his house. I got home tonight, and all her stuff became gone. We had agreed she could pick him up after school. She ought to live until I were given home, or I would select him up at her dad and mom. Replace. I can't reduce her out of my life. We've a young son collectively. We filed for divorce. She may be served subsequent week. I'm no longer going to do anything to embarrass her like serving her at a game, and so forth. I informed her the papers had been coming. She wanted a few matters from the residence. My lawyer said no. She could petition. I assume it is the word he said while she answers the court docket for certain objects. Myself, there isn't always a whole lot I care for, so she in all likelihood can have them. What she desired was now not her non-public stuff like clothes and makeup. Many have requested what she is doing with herself now. She remains at her dad and mom house. My son is going their maximum days until I get domestic from paintings. I have been attempting to complete up by 5:00 p.m. maximum days, no longer running the extras. My attorney is working with every other to hold my commercial enterprise out of the complaints. My dad has supplied to buy my route and hire me as a worker if that is what it takes. I'm able to must pay her aid. We can share custody. It's lonely at home after my son is going to bed. However, I am managing it. I've multiple initiatives to preserve me busy. I have lots of pals offering all types of help from babysitting to food. Closing Saturday at the game. Most of the mother and father that got here all clumped around me with their chairs instead of spreading out alongside the sidelines. I was very touched. We've got best this week's game and playoffs, and then we're performed. Basketball might be next. All of the dad and mom I have talked to will request Ted not be their infants teach. Many have requested approximately Mary. She has been my friend for so many years. Many have requested approximately ending up with her. First, the ache of separation honestly hurts. I cannot see myself doing something other than adjusting to my new existence and offering for my son. I mentioned that Mary changed into the neatest youngster in our faculty. She's up to now out of my league. I would best keep someone like that again. We're sharing the harm. It is her ex that moved right here to maybe reconcile.